All right, everybody, welcome live to my YouTube channel, Paul Esden Jr., a.k.a. Boy Green. We got a fantastic guest, a guest that's been clamored for across the country. There's Adam Schefter, there's Jake Asman, and I've been trying to get both of them on the show, and Jake, finally, I'm seeing you making Radio Row around here. Not only virtual Radio Row at the Super Bowl, but people are trying to bring you on every show on the planet. Jake, how do you have the time, my friend?
Well, Paul, look, I mean, for Boy Green, you got to make the time. I mean, come on. To even compare me, though, to Schefter, that is hilarious. I appreciate the kind words, though.
So let's dive in. Well, first off, here's the thing. So we can kind of set things up for people. Jake, you have a nationally syndicated radio show. You are a megastar, a superstar, formerly up here in the New York area. Then you kind of traveled down there to Houston, and that connection will be very important in just a few minutes. But, I mean, lay the groundwork, man, for the wonderful show you have and the rebranding of the Sports Map Radio Network that's right behind you.
There's no doubt. So I moved to Houston in July of 2018 to take a full-time job with a company called Down Media. Down Media owns ESPN 97.5 Houston, and they also own, at the time, it was called SB Nation Radio. I was mainly a host on SB Nation Radio and a reporter and fill-in host on ESPN Houston when I first arrived. Fast forward now to July of this past summer, and the SB Nation Radio Network rebranded under the name Sports Map Radio, where I host a show Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern time. So it's a national show. We're based here in Houston, and the show is syndicated in markets, throughout the country. So I kind of have a very interesting feel on everything going on in Houston because, I do some local radio when they need me as a fill-in host, and I would report on games back when that was still, a thing to actually do. But I also do a daily show that is a national show talking about whatever the big stories are in sports. And right now, the big story in sports is a local story for the Houston sport fan with Deshaun Watson, of course. And as a diehard Jets fan, I also have a very unique perspective on it, from the Jet standpoint and from a national standpoint and from my local Houston standpoint. So I've been doing a lot of these interviews because I'm kind of in the middle of everything going on.
Yeah, and you are the perfect person to interview. So I'm glad that we have you here on YouTube talking about this. And I'm sure we'll even play some clips on my sports talk radio show here in Syracuse. But let's get that perspective first, because we need to establish the groundwork here. What the hell is happening in Houston? It's not just even football, man. James Harden is gone, and then you go to the Texans, you lose DeAndre Hopkins, Bill O'Brien, the GM, this, that. I mean, I'll let you tell the tale here, but I mean, Houston, we have a problem.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if we have enough time if we're going to tell the full tale. I mean, all you need to know, Paul, is over the last year, if you were a GM or a head coach for any of the three major franchises here, you're no longer employed. I mean, D'Antoni gone, Daryl Morey gone from the Rockets, AJ Hinch gone, Jeff Luhnow gone. Bill O'Brien was both head coach and GM. He's gone. And you mentioned the list of, stars that have gone. And, even go back to, the Yankees signing Garrett Cole. Another star Houston athlete that left then. So it's been crazy. And, specifically with the Texans, it's a lot of factors here. I mean, there's a clear distrust between players on the team and the, executive vice president of football operations, Jack Easterby, who was a character coach, and, Bill O'Brien brought in, and he kind of rose to power very quick. O'Brien gets fired. Easterby maintains control, and there's some sort of divide between the players and him. There's an issue with ownership, the players not having confidence in ownership, being able to put a great team on the field. So it's a lot of factors. I don't think it's just one thing with what's happened to the Texans, but you look back and, the 24-0 lead they blew against the Chiefs, it's been all downhill since, with the Hopkins trade following everything else, and now a 4-12 season. Watson wants out, and they've released J.J. Watt as we sit here and talk about this on a Friday earlier today. So it's just been a lot of different things that have kind of added up, and this snowball continues to roll downhill.
I mean, that's it right there. That wonderful moment you talked about, we're like, what the hell's happening here? The Texans are about to smack around Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. What was that, 13 months ago? I mean, yikes. Time flies pretty fast. And
they would have been hosting the AFC Championship game. If you remember, they're up 24-0. The Titans were the team that ended up playing Kansas City. The Texans had beaten the Titans in the regular season. They split the last game they played. The Texans lost, but they didn't play Watson. They didn't play any of their key starters. They would have been at home, first time ever in franchise history in the conference championship game. They would have been a favorite to win that game over the Titans, and they could have been in the Super Bowl, and who knows what we'd be talking about right now. But ever since that point where they brought O'Brien back, promoted him to GM, although he had already been making many of the personnel moves, They gave him the official title. The Hopkins trade happens. And ever since that moment, it's been all downhill for the Texans.
Yeah, and really, you just hit the main point. They gypped you out of an AFC Championship game hosting party and everything that includes. So I don't know why we haven't been talking about that even more, quite frankly. But let's get into it here. And because of all that dysfunction, Deshaun Watson is trying to smash the eject button. He's got the no trade clause. He did just sign the new contract extension a couple of months ago, but I don't blame him because get the money while you can. But there's a lot of different narratives out there. I guess let's go here with the Deshaun Watson thing. Is it repairable? Is what has happened fixable? Because it seems like the Texan stance at this point is every call that's coming in is, I have no idea what you're talking about. Deshaun Watson is not on the block. And technically, they have him under contract, and they can fine him up the wazoo, as we found out. But this could be an interesting stalemate.
Yeah, to answer your question, I don't think it's repairable. I just don't see a scenario where like Deshaun magically is just happy. It's like, all right, I'm going to show up to work and I can't wait to play for you, David Culley. He won't return their phone calls from what I've been told. Nick Caserio has had zero interaction with Deshaun. The owner of the team, Cal McNair, can't even get in touch with his franchise quarterback. So I don't think the situation's repairable. The question becomes, well, would they trade him or would they just play hardball, essentially tank away their next season? And then if we do this all again next offseason, that's the real question. They don't have to do anything now. Watson doesn't have to do anything now. The deadline for any sort of action to me is not free agency. It's the NFL draft, because the second they wait till after the draft happens, Watson's value goes down. It will go back up a year from now when you have a better idea of the landscape for the quarterback market. But the longer they wait, if they're going to trade him after the draft, that would be organizational malpractice. They need a decision. Either we're all in with playing hardball and we won't trade this guy under any circumstance. We'll tank the season if need be, because A.J. McCarron's going to be your quarterback or whoever. You're not going to win that many games. So you're going to be bad. You might have the first pick in the draft if you go 2-14. So I just think it comes down to this. Are they willing to play hardball with him? If they are, well, then the Texans are going to be an awful team. They're going to hear it all year. But if you're not going to trade him by draft night, don't trade him at all. Take all the bullets and try it again next year. I think what ends up happening, though, is that they do trade him. And when they do trade him, to maximize value, it has to be before the first round of the draft.
And let's get that flavor in here, because obviously I'm going to make this parallel with the Jets and the Texans. I don't know if I've heard it a lot, but with the Jets and Jamal Adams, the thing that I guess bothered me was the timing. Because if you would have if you knew that you weren't going to pay him, and that seemed evident, that you traded him ahead of the draft to help your team right away, right then and there, and of course they did, and they traded him right before training camp. If the Texans dig in their feet and say, no way, screw you guys, we're not doing it, the Jets are going to take a quarterback with the number 2 pick, or they're going to do something, and these teams are going to start moving on. And then all of a sudden, those wonderful packages of picks from Miami or the Jets or any of these teams, all of a sudden that goes out the window here. So, again, if you want to hold strong, and let's say, and I guess I want to address this point with you right from the get-go, is Deshaun Watson, is he – I guess we could see it with James Harden. When James Harden went all out, he went all in. I'm out of here. And he did everything that was possible and necessary. And obviously he had to take some ugly press for it, but he did what he had to do to get out. I guess let me just ask you point blank. Is Deshaun Watson willing to do what it takes to get out?
I think he is. Yeah, I do think he is, because the difference between Harden and Watson is that it seems like right now most people are on the side of Deshaun Watson, right? I mean, it's with Harden, it was like, dude, how could you leave? You're the reason why the organization is in the spot it's in. It's totally different with Watson. Watson is almost like a sympathetic figure at this point, and he hasn't spoken yet. I mean, that's the other thing that Watson could play. He could come out on the record and do an interview and explain exactly why he wants to leave, and he could tell his side of the story. And do the Texans really want to deal with that? It might just make sense. If you're Nick Caserio, you have a 6-year contract. Hey, you didn't draft this guy. It sucks you got to trade him. But you know what? You can't afford to go 2-14 next year, right? Your best bet might be take the 4 first-round picks from the Jets, or take whatever the package is that makes the most sense, and start a rebuild. So I just don't see the scenario where they're going to be, tough enough, so to speak. They're going to have the chutzpah, or as Chris Russo would say, the chutzpah, to actually, stand firm and tell this guy we're not trading you. Because I think when push comes to shove, they're going to deal him, because I think they're going to cave to the pressure of what Watson's camp is going to be able to put on them.
Okay, so you're down there in Houston. So right now, I imagine it's pretty bad. And if COVID wasn't happening, people may be lining up on the streets. But if we go past the draft, even past the first round, quite frankly, I think is enough. But if you get past the draft and Deshaun Watson is still a member of the Houston Texans, what's the status there in Houston?
Yeah, I don't know. I got to be honest with you. I don't know. I don't know what would happen. I mean, you got to understand too. Deshaun Watson's agent is David Mulligetta. Mulligetta represented Jalen Ramsey. Jalen Ramsey wanted out of Jacksonville, and he got his way. How did he do it? Well, he showed up, but then he started saying, "My back hurts. I can't play," and then it was magically healed by the time he got to the Rams. Like Deshaun could do that as well. If he wants his money, he could show up. He could report. He could do, whatever it takes to be an NFL player, so to speak. But then he could say his back hurts and he can't play. Then what? Like you could corrupt the entire locker room with this situation. So I just wonder if the Texans are willing, to dance with Deshaun and play some hardball, knowing that it could be really, really negative inside that building for a full season.
Yeah, and again, that's the thing that gets me, because another comparison that has been made is Carson Palmer. And of course, he was older and not nearly the same quarterback. Again, even if you harken back to the number 1 overall pick and all the success he's had, where Deshaun Watson is right now is somewhere Carson Palmer wasn't, and there was a lot of different circumstances then. And from everything we hear, this Deshaun Watson thing is even worse than it was with Carson Palmer and the Bengals. So let's go to the next piece of this. Where could he possibly go if the Texans have any if they have any, radical thought in their brain? As you said, they just realize, hey, he's not playing for us. We've already traded him. We just got to pick where. And the reporter down there, and I want you to set the tone here, because a lot of these people in New York, they don't know. John McClain, who's John McClain? Who's this guy? What does he know? Lay it out for us, Jake. Why is what John McClain is saying is different than whatever a lot of people are talking? Let's just be honest. A lot of people are saying things about Deshaun Watson, this list, that list, A, B, D, and everything in between. But why is what John McClain is saying, why should it be taken with even more authority than what anyone else is saying? Lay the groundwork.
Because I just don't think John McClain puts things out there just to say it, right? I mean, it's obvious the Jets can make the best trade package. Anyone who wants to dispute that, I think you're a moron. Like, I'm just going to say it. Like, you can't beat the amount of picks the Jets have. Doesn't mean they're going to get Watson. Doesn't mean they trade all 4 first-round picks over the next 2 years. Or if they get a late one for Sam, doesn't mean they do that. Maybe they like Zach Wilson and they'll take a quarterback at 2. We don't know. But from a asset standpoint, it's obvious the Jets have the most to offer. So let's get that out of the way. But what McClain is saying is significant, because John McClain doesn't just say things like that unless he has it on pretty good authority from the owner, who he has a good relationship with, that would be the circumstance. So while the Texans' stance now is we're not trading Deshaun, the fact that he's only specifically mentioning the Jets is significant, because that means the Texans internally know if we're going to trade this guy, we got to trade him to a team like the Jets because they have the 2nd overall pick and we need a quarterback. Like, don't give me the Niners or the Broncos. They don't have assets to get you a quarterback immediately. If you're going to restart a rebuild and you could potentially deal with the Jets and have 3 ones in year 1, right? Jets trade Darnold, get a late 1, trade the 23rd pick from Seattle, trade the 2nd overall pick. You might not need to unload all your assets to get Deshaun over the next couple of years. You could do one clean break, get that guy as your quarterback. And from the Texan standpoint, start your rebuild right away. And that's the most important thing, right? If you do a deal with the Panthers or the Niners or any of these other teams, you're not able to jumpstart the rebuild right away. It's prolonged. And I think if you're the Texans, you got to give your fan base something. You got to give them hope that, hey, we just got 3 picks this year. We got some 2s this year. We got some picks next year. Like, you want to talk to me about throwing in players if you're the Broncos or some of these other teams on his list? Great, but how does that make sense for those teams if you're giving up players? Because then you're making your overall roster weaker. Like, then maybe you could beat the Jets if you throw in enough players, but then why would you want to make that trade in the first place? So it all comes back to the Jets. I don't know if they'll trade him to the Jets. I don't know if the Jets would be all in and giving up whatever to get him. But I think when John McClain mentions the Jets, it's because internally they understand, like we all understand, the Jets have the most pieces available in a trade.
All right, let's speculate now. Now, this is just, I'm just thinking out loud here. So the Jets, as you've said, obviously have the treasure chest of picks to get it done. Four first-round picks in the next 2 years, 18 picks in the next 2 years, and that's not even talking about Darnold and whatever he could potentially bring back. In your mind, and I want your opinion here, again, as we're speculating, what would the Texans prefer? Do they want a lot of picks in one draft? Do they want picks in multiple drafts? And we've got 4 first-round picks to play with. And again, I don't know if I would give up 4 first-round picks and everything else that people are saying it would take, because I love Watson and I want him here. But I'm just curious. What would they want 23? Would they want the mystery door number 2? They don't know what the pick's going to be of either Seattle or the Jets. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think they just want the best deal. I don't know if there's a preference on, oh, well, we want to have more picks year one or year two. The Jets could do both. Like, that's the thing. The Jets could structure an offer however they prefer it. I mean, if they wanted Sam Darnold and they wanted to be the team that would give Sam a chance, they could do that as well. I see it more as, the Jets would just trade more picks and then flip Sam to recoup some of the assets. That's kind of how I see that going. But that's just a personal opinion. I have no info on that. They want the best deal. Like when John McClain mentions the Jets, it's because they have the best opportunity, to make the best package, right? You could give me the Dolphins, but I don't know if Nick Caserio likes Tua. I don't know if the Dolphins even want to move on from Tua that quick. That needs to be discussed as well. And I don't know if the Texans want to acquire their third overall pick in the draft, that they were the ones who sent it to Miami in the Laramie Tunsil trade. So optic-wise, maybe they don't even want to do that. So I just think if he gets traded, the team that rightfully makes the most sense still is the Jets. I get it. They're not great roster-wise, 2 wins, but Watson wanted to play for Saleh. Watson can be sold on New York from his buddy James Harden, and Watson is very brand conscious. His marketing guys from Brooklyn. I think the appeal of being the biggest star in New York City would mean a lot to him. So the Jets might not be his number one team. That's okay. Because as long as he wouldn't wait, as long as he'd agree to waive the no trade, the Jets have a great chance of getting him. And that's all that really matters. And I think he would agree to waive that no trade to play for the Jets. So now it's just a matter of A, will the Texans trade him? And B, how much would Joe Douglas be willing to give up? I think he'd give up a lot. Would he give up 4 first-round picks and Quinn Williams? Probably not. But would he give up 3 1s, some 2s, and whatever else? Yeah, I think he would do it. So I think the Jets have a good chance of getting him. I really do.
And my question is, and I never thought I would ask this question, can the Jets do anything wrong? This offseason, they hired Robert Saleh. Jet fans are over the top. They hired Leon Washington just last week. Obviously a smaller move, but a cool kind of nostalgic throwback to Leon Washington. What would the fan base be? Now, again, we're just predicting. If Deshaun Watson was traded to the Jets, and you open up the next season with Deshaun Watson at quarterback, Robert Saleh, any of the picks that are remaining, they're not going to the Texans aren't going to ask for 18 of them, so they're going to have picks in this draft and also the next draft too. And I think that's something that Jet fans forget about when there is that small faction of the fan base that doesn't want to give up the farm. You can give up the farm, and guess what? Joe Douglas has another farm sitting over here. But what would be the level of excitement from this fan base? And also, obviously, you could speak to it as a fellow diehard Jets fan.
Oh, it'd be incredible. I mean, it'd be the most excited I think a Jet fan would be for an upcoming season since, going into the 2010 season or going into the 2011 season. I mean, if you go back to the 99 season following the 12-4 year with Parcells, in the AFC title game. So I think it'd be incredible. And Deshaun Watson alone doesn't make you a Super Bowl contender, but for the Jets, you just fixed your biggest issue at the most important position in sports for what you hope is the next decade plus. It's a no-brainer if you can get this guy. And if they end up turning the Jamal Adams picks into Deshaun Watson, I mean, I'll build Joe Douglas a statue myself. Like it's a move you make if you're the Jets. It's obvious, and it doesn't mean they're going to get him, but you do whatever it takes within reason. Like you're not going to trade away, your 8 first-round picks, but it wouldn't take that because once again, not all first-round picks are created equal. The Jets giving you the 2nd overall pick is more significant than any pick any team could give you unless the Jaguars would trade you the first pick, and we know that's not happening. So, it's very simple why the Jets make the most sense from an asset standpoint, and now it's the job, if Houston's going to trade them, it's the job of Saleh, it's the job of Douglas to get with Deshaun's camp and make them feel comfortable that they're going to be able to surround them with a great team. We didn't even talk about the fact the Jets have the 2nd most cap space in the NFL. So a rebuild is not really a rebuild in football. If you get the right coach and the right quarterback, you could become very good very fast. A year ago, the Dolphins were tanking for Tua. They went 5-11, played well under Flores. This past year, they won 10 games and probably should have been in the playoffs if they found a way to win one of these games down the stretch. It doesn't take that long to go from bad to in the playoffs in the NFL, especially when you consider there is an extra wild card spot available in each conference.
And that's a great point. And John McClain, by the way, said that point. He did an interview with the U Stadium yesterday and said that very point that the Jets, and again, I see exactly what you see, that John McClain, in theory, is almost a mouthpiece for the Texans. He is kind of leaking the truth whispers of what they're kind of looking for. When he says, wow, look at that number 2 pick, you can have any quarterback not named Trevor Lawrence. I think that is true, that there is that same kind of conversation from the Houston Texans. So
the Texans aren't talking to the Schefters and the Ian Rappaport. So anything you hear that gets out is from either Watson's camp or it's made up, right? The only person that I could confirm to you that actually has, valuable information that is coming from as high as it could possibly be is John McClain. I don't know if Cal McNair personally called him up and said, hey, it's Jets or nothing. I don't know that. I don't know what their conversations were like, but I do know John's been in this town for 40 years. He has, or covering the NFL in Houston for 40 years. He had a great relationship with the late owner of the Texans, Mr. McNair, Bob McNair, right? And Bob McNair, he was very close with McClain, who then obviously has formed a relationship now, McClain has, with Cal McNair. So when John speaks, he's getting it from the top of the top at the ownership level. So it's not just like, someone just throwing something out there, as plugged in as the Jet media is, Chris Johnson or Woody Johnson's not calling up Rich Cimini or Connor Hughes to give them stuff. That's not how it works. John McClain's getting info from the very top of the organization.
All right, so 2 more things here, and then we'll get you out of here. You're a very busy man. Next thing up, timeline. Okay, when do the Texans bash their head against the wall enough times they're like, wait a second, guys, whoa, it's March, it's April, we need to get this thing done. Let's call up the team. Let's just allow Deshaun Watson to talk to some of the teams. Let's figure it out and get all that jazz. What's the timeline here? If it's going to happen, when is it going to happen?
I would say before the draft, but I think a deal like this, which is so complicated, I don't know if it just comes together draft night. So I think if they're going to trade him, it's probably a couple weeks before the draft, because then you give the Texans ample time to make sure they're sold on one of these quarterbacks, right? I mean, that's the other thing. What if Houston doesn't like Fields or Wilson or Trey Lance? Like, that could derail a potential trade, but maybe they still would want to do the Jet deal, because if you're Nick Caserio and you can get the 2nd overall pick, even if you don't want to take a quarterback, well, what if you traded back and got even more first-round picks? So maybe you start the day with 3 picks in the first round from the Jets, hypothetically. You might end it with 5 players you're taking, in the first round. Or you might end it with 4 players in round 1 and accumulate another one for next year. So it's impossible to speculate what they would do if they trade Watson. I think, though, if they are going to trade him, it's either the week before the draft or around that time. I don't think this is something that can be put together draft night because of all the moving pieces that are in play. But if it's going to happen, the deadline absolutely is the first night of the draft.
Yeah, a great point. I think with that many layers, of course, it would you have to get it done in advance. Last one before we get you out of here. Again, it's all Deshaun Watson, this entire video. But if I had to put you on the spot, and you're telling me who the New York Jets starting quarterback is this September right now with everything you know, and you can give a fan answer and a media answer if you want to give you a little wiggle room there, but who is that quarterback?
Well, the fan answer is I want Deshaun, but the media answer, why not? I mean, it's February 12th. Why not have some fun? It's Deshaun Watson. He's going to be quarterbacking the Jets. The Jets are going to be 10-6 next year. They're going to go to the playoffs, and Robert Saleh is going to be coach of the year. I mean, why not? This is our Super Bowl. We're Jet fans. So we get to enjoy it. But I think they got a great chance at it. I don't know what the future holds. I will say this. I don't think it's Darnold. I think he's getting traded regardless of what happens with Watson. And they're going to take a quarterback 2nd overall. I also would say this. If it's not the Jets taking someone 2nd overall, I think whichever team has that pick is going to be taking a quarterback. So maybe it's the Texans. Maybe the Jets trade down. But I don't see Sam being the starter. I think the most likely scenario is Fields or Wilson at 2. But why not dream, right? If Deshaun's getting traded, our team, we've waited our whole life for something like this. So let's put Deshaun Watson on the Jets. Why not? It's February 12th. Let's have some fun.
That's right. Dream the dream. You can follow him on Twitter at Jake Asman. You can listen. It's a nationally syndicated radio show. It's up there. It's the greatest radio show in this universe. So with that being said, Jake, it's great to finally get you on the YouTube channel. This is awesome. We'll have to do it again soon. And love all the work over there at Sports Map Radio Network, man. I really appreciate it.
Paul, I appreciate it, man. I'm like you. I started a YouTube channel as well, so just search my name, Jake Asman. You can find it as well. I try to post lots of Jet stuff because I know, the Jet fans love YouTube, love checking out content there. So it's been a lot of fun to build that up as well.
All right, thanks, man. We'll catch you later.
You got it, Paul. Thank you.